In 1925, a man sold the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. He didn't own it, he didn't work for the city, he wasn't even French, and the buyer paid him in cash. Then, a few weeks later, he came back and sold it again. This is the story of the smoothest con man who ever lived, and his trick was so simple, you could almost run it yourself. His name was Victor Lustig. Probably. He used at least 25 fake names, spoke 5 languages, and lied about almost everything, so probably is the best any of us can do. Lustig was born in 1890 in a small town that's now in the Czech Republic. By his 20s, he'd figured out the one skill that could carry his whole life. People will believe almost anything if you stay calm while you say it. He was charming in a quiet way. He never rushed. He never seemed to want anything from you, which is exactly what made you want to give it to him. He'd spent years running smaller cons to sharpen his craft, fake investments, rigged card games on fancy ocean liners crossing the Atlantic. He even wrote down a private list of rules for other con men, and the very first rule was this: be a patient listener. Not a fast talker, a listener, because the best con never feels like a con. It feels like a favor someone is doing for you. In the spring of 1925, Lustig was in Paris, reading the newspaper. He found a story most people would skip right past. The Eiffel Tower was falling apart. Here's something we forget today. The tower was never built to be permanent. It went up for the 1889 World's Fair, and it was supposed to come down about 20 years later. By 1925, it was rusting. It was expensive to maintain, and some people in Paris were openly asking whether the city should just tear it down. Lustig read that, and he didn't see a national monument. He saw a product, a giant pile of metal that nobody seemed to want. So he decided to sell it. First, the costume. Because a con isn't really about the lie, it's about the frame around the lie. Lustig had fake government stationery printed, official letterhead, the right stamps, the right titles. He rented a grand suite in the Hôtel del Crillon, one of the best hotels in Paris. Real officials met people in places like that. So when he met you there, your brain quietly filled in the rest. Then he sent private letters to 5 of the biggest scrap metal dealers in the city. The letters invited them to a confidential meeting. Very hush-hush, government business. At the meeting, Lustig introduced himself as a senior official, and he shared a secret. The city had decided the Eiffel Tower was too expensive to keep. It was going to be torn down and sold for scrap. 7,000 tons of iron. But the public could not find out yet. People loved the tower. There would be an uproar. So everything had to stay quiet. Now think about how smart that is. The secrecy wasn't a weak spot in the story. The secrecy was the story. By telling them to keep it quiet, he gave them a reason not to ask around, not to check, not to call a newspaper. The lie protected itself. Now, he just had to pick his mark. The mark is the person you actually con, and Lustig chose carefully. He picked a dealer named André Poisson. Poisson was newer money. He wasn't fully accepted by the old Paris business crowd, and he wanted to be. He wanted a deal big enough to prove that he belonged. Lustig could smell that need. Con men always did. But Poisson's wife was suspicious. Why all the secrecy? Why this man? Why now? So Lustig did something incredible. He met Poisson privately, and he confessed. He leaned in and admitted that he was just a poorly paid government worker. The salary was bad, and a man in his position sometimes had to find other ways to get by. In other words, he hinted that he wanted a bribe, and that changed everything. Suddenly, Poisson wasn't dealing with a suspiciously perfect official. He was dealing with a crooked one, a normal, greedy, corrupt man. And that felt real. That felt like how the world actually works. Poisson relaxed. He handed over the money for the tower, a small fortune, well worth over $1 million today, and he handed over an extra pile of cash as the bribe. Lustig took both, got on a train out of France, and vanished. And here's the part that tells you everything about people. Poisson never went to the police. He was too embarrassed. Admitting he bought the Eiffel Tower from a stranger felt worse in his mind than just swallowing the loss. Lustig waited. Weeks passed. Nothing in the papers. No warrant. Nothing. So he went back to Paris and ran the exact same con again, with a fresh group of dealers. This time, one of them got suspicious and went to the police before the money changed hands. Lustig slipped out of France just ahead of time. But sit with that for a second. He was confident enough and right enough about people to sell the same landmark twice. Selling the Eiffel Tower would be a whole career for most people. For Lustig, it was a warm-up. He ran a scam called the Romanian Money Box. It was a wooden box with some rollers and chemicals inside. Lustig claimed it could copy money. Slide in a real $100 bill, wait a few hours, and out comes a perfect duplicate. To prove it, he'd hide a couple of real bills inside ahead of time. The mark would watch a copy come out, take it to the bank, and find it was real. So they would pay thousands for the box. He once sold one to a Texas sheriff. By the time these people realized the box only ever produced the 2 or 3 real bills already hidden inside, Lustig was long gone, usually in another state under another name. He even conned Al Capone. Lustig asked the most dangerous gangster in America to invest $50,000, promising to double it. Then he just held the money, did nothing with it. 2 months later, he gave every dollar back, looking ashamed, and said the deal had fallen through. Capone was so surprised by the honesty that he handed Lustig $5,000 as a gift, which was the con. The entire plan was to look honest and walk away with $5,000 from Al Capone. And he did. So how do you catch a man like this? You don't, really. He caught himself. Lustig moved to counterfeiting, printing fake money fast and a lot of it. He pushed so much fake cash into the country that the Secret Service started hunting him for real. And in the end, it wasn't brilliant detective work that got him. It was a person, his girlfriend, angry and jealous, tipped off the police about where he was. He was arrested. He actually escaped once, climbing out of a jail window on a rope of bedsheets. They caught him, and the man who sold the Eiffel Tower spent the rest of his life in Alcatraz, where he died there in 1947. On his death certificate under occupation, someone wrote a single word: salesman. Here's the thing about Victor Lustig. He never broke into anywhere. He never pointed a weapon at anyone. Every single thing he stole, people handed to him. And they handed it over because he understood something most honest people don't like to admit. We don't believe what's true. We believe what feels true. A fancy hotel feels official. A secret feels important. A little corruption feels normal. He didn't beat the system. He just read the people inside it. That's how the trick works. This was Snake Oil. There's always another con, so subscribe and don't get fooled.